Cubicles and Corpses. People say the world won't end with a bang but a whimper. In truth, it ended with moans and grunts within less than 24 hours. At least his did. Theirs did. Larry sat in his cubicle, Microsoft Excel open on his desktop as he stared at his phone. A typical New Yorker Thursday, if there ever was one. Lunch break came and went. He ate alone among his colleagues, most of them staring at the two new hires. Anna and Tina, two 20-something-year-olds just starting out. To the older men around him, especially to Stephen and Noah, they looked like an easy snack. Some fun on the side, away from the wife and kids. The more seasoned women, for their age was not to be mentioned, smiled at them as they pushed them down the metaphorical stairs. To Larry, however, they looked scared and lost. And he sure as hell didn't care enough to engage them or to try and sabotage them. Physically, he was there from 9 to 5, mentally from 10 to 2, and spiritually, he walked his dog. They ran and played in his mind as his fingers tip-tapped away on the old and dirty keyboard. 2 p.m. passed, and nothing changed. The clock chimed 3 p.m. as he wasted away, 4 coffees deep and a second lunch on his table, smelling heavenly. And that would be the last sweet thing to graze his nose. Barry's head popped over his cubicle. "Larry, my man," he smiled. Larry tried for a smile. It looked like a scowl. Barry thought them to be boys, based on their names and nothing more. "Hey, Barry, did you see the news?" "Just getting to it." He lifted his phone. "Do you think it's true?" Barry scuttled over, standing directly in the AC's way. The smell of cigarettes and tuna wafted over him. "Haven't gotten to that part yet," Larry said, turning his head away. "What do you mean?" "I'm guessing you're asking about the riots in the districts," Larry said, reading the sports section. The Knicks made a splash in the off-season. Whether it will end in a playoff push is yet to be decided. And I'm still at the feel-good section. "I think it's fake." "Why?" Larry asked. Then the screams started. Both men looked at each other, then heads around them rose from their seats. "What the hell?" Larry stood. "People are losing their minds," Marge said, standing at the window. "They are running and screaming." Larry rushed to the windows. Outside was chaos. People ran and jumped and screamed. Or some did. Others ran around, covered in blood, attacking whoever was nearest. "The fuck?" Barry asked. "I got no idea," Larry said as they watched the chaos unfold. A man wearing a suit attacked a mother and her child, and a homeless man ran to their aid. Blood sprayed as the suited man sank his teeth into the homeless man's face. They went down in a flurry of limbs and blood. 30 seconds later, the suited man jumped up, running the mother and her crying daughter down. Larry watched as the woman did her best to protect her daughter, but she failed. Fell, and the girl, maybe 8, ran. Or she tried to. The homeless man grabbed her leg, and she tripped, her head slamming against the pavement. The homeless man got on top and sank his teeth into the girl's neck. The suited man joined him. Moments later, so did the mother, half her chest missing. "Zombies," Barry whispered. I guess Alex Jones was right. Larry stared at the most annoying man in the office and realized that Barry was the only person he knew anything about. He disliked the man, true, but he actually knew him enough to dislike him. "Shit," Larry breathed. "I'll say," Barry muttered, his eyes glued to the street, 1 story below. "What the fuck?" the man asked. Larry turned to the window. A white Ford flew over the intersection, then disappeared. "Down!" he shouted, jumping for cover. The whole building shook as the Ford tore through the glass walls of the ground level. People around him screamed as Larry lay on his stomach, hands covering his head. The street chaos spread through the office. Panic entered even his disinterested brain. "Oh, get up!" Barry grabbed his shoulder. We need to move! Where to? Larry asked, but Barry pulled him up instead of answering. Barry! To get weapons and to get the fuck out of here. Larry tried to protest, but he had no other plan or idea what to do, and Barry pulled him along into the office kitchen. He grabbed a knife, offering him another. Larry took it, his brain finally fighting through the panic and shock. We should take the kitchen towels as well. What for? Protection? Larry said, wrapping the towel around his hand. My man, Barry patted his back. Do we have duct tape? I don't know, but we don't need it, Larry said, splitting one end of the towel and tying it to his hand. He did the same thing for his other arm. Barry stared at him, then tried mimicking. He failed. Let me, Larry said, tying the towels tight. Would that be enough? He thought. Where did you learn how to do that? My grandma was a nurse, he said. Do you want me to do your legs as well? Someone rushed into the kitchen, and both men brandished knives at Anna. She froze but was pushed inside. Tina, Marge, Greg, and Stephen busted into the kitchen. They stared at them for a moment. What are you doing with those knives? Marge asked. Arming ourselves, Barry said. Smart, Greg said, taking one for himself. Yeah, it is, Barry responded, taking the big wooden cutting board. Let's move. Larry nodded, and the two men exited the kitchen. We will have to be quiet, Larry said, rushing to one of the two exits, the one closer to the stairs. Engage only if we must, Barry said, winking as if he were joking. Larry nodded, reaching the slowly closing door. He put his leg out, stopping it. Both men looked at each other and then at the office manager's table. The short woman was nowhere to be found. Hopefully, she didn't run brainlessly into the chaos. Barry pulled his keycard out of his pocket and hung it around his neck. Smart man, Larry thought, doing the same. Stephen, Greg, Marge, and Tina rushed past them, carrying knives. Anna lagged behind, holding a metal tray in her hands as she slowly approached. The thin and tall woman looked nervously at them, expecting something. What? Larry asked himself. You sticking with us? He asked. Please, yes, she said, her voice shaking. Stay close and follow our lead, Barry said, stretching his neck and arms. The two men looked at each other one last time and pushed the door fully open. The small hallway containing the elevator and the emergency escape stairs was empty, but not silent. Emergency doors opening and closing echoed in the building, as did grunts and steps, and an occasional scream. His mind filled in the blanks. The grunts of zombies as they pushed the doors open or closed. The running steps of men and women trying to get away, and the screams of those who failed. Move, Larry thought, slowly pushing the heavy emergency exit door open. There was nothing there. Well, nothing worrisome. He saw a small trail of blood leading down the stairs, disappearing behind Greg, Stephen, and the two women kneeling by the corner, looking down. Quiet now, Barry whispered, and they moved. Or Larry and Anna moved. Barry stayed back, jamming something into the emergency doors so it didn't fully close. He gave them a thumbs up, and Larry continued, taking the lead. Barry covered the back, and Anna walked in the middle, her knuckles white on the metal tray as her whole body shook. Larry's entire focus was on moving forward, step by step, trying to stay quiet and keep his teeth from chattering, eyes focused on the scene before him, trusting Barry to have his back. They closed in on the first office group as they knelt, quiet as church mice. We are, Larry whispered so quietly that Tina barely heard him. The woman nodded, touching Marge's back, and she turned, took the scene in, then informed Greg by pinching the man's leg. The man turned, nodded, then turned back, pointing at something. Larry moved left, trying to get a better vantage point, and then he saw it. The white Ford made a big hole in the glass wall, and at least 7 zombies gathered around the car and the hole. leaving the main entrance empty. They had a straight shot to it, a 15-foot dash, if that. Barry touched his shoulder, and Larry turned to him. The man held 2 fingers before his eyes, then pointed outwards, shrugging. Larry stared at him, not comprehending. "What do you see?" he mouthed. Larry held up 7 fingers and bit the air. Barry smiled. Was the man enjoying this? Larry asked himself. Better that than being scared shitless, he told himself, then mouth at Barry. Exit no zombies, followed by a headshake and air biting just to be sure. Someone behind him moved, and Larry turned to see Greg holding Marge back. She shook her head, pointing at the exit. He shook his head, eyes wide, mouthing no. The woman lifted her knife to his face, teeth bared. Greg slowly released her, and she circled him, knife held high. "I can," she mouthed, throwing one last glance at them before bolting for the door. It might have only been a 15-foot dash, but Marge barely made it 10 feet. A tall zombie slammed into her back, its hands wrapping around her as its teeth drew blood. She screamed as she fell, her knife clattering to the ground. Each and every zombie in the building turned to screaming Marge. Larry stood dumbfounded, his hands shaking as his brain tried to process what was happening. Every zombie in the building rushed at her, snarling and growling. Blood flowed freely as the screams stopped. Barry smacked his head, and Larry shook himself, still hardly believing his eyes. "Back," Barry whispered, gesturing to them. Larry nodded, turning to the others. "Greg, Stephen, Tina," he whispered, pushing Anna to break her out of her trance. They followed, unable to comprehend what had happened. Barry walked backward, gesturing to Greg to do the same. Larry's eye caught something moving. It rushed down the stairs as fast as a speeding bullet, bearing down on unsuspecting Barry. Its snarls masked by the cacophony coming from downstairs, its bloody teeth bared. There was no thinking, no yelling, just movement. Larry ran up the stairs, disregarding the noise his steps made. He met the short brunette zombie halfway, stabbing for her ear. Missed. The knife sank into the thing's neck as his arms, legs, and chest hit it sideways. His momentum and power lifted it up, and they slammed into the wall. His knee and elbow embedded into its hip and shoulder. The thing screeched, and Larry pushed himself off, but it grabbed his arm. Nails sank into his shirt and towel, ripping both away as the zombie pulled itself after him. Larry saw its jaws open, saw death coming for him. The wooden cutting board smashed into it, closing the jaws of death and crushing the thing's skull against the wall. Barry swung again. Blood sprayed the wall and Barry's and Larry's hands as Anna grabbed him. Greg and Tina had already opened the emergency door, beckoning them in. The 3 of them rushed in, closing the door. "Thank you," Larry said, leaning against the wall. "Thank you," Barry said, grabbing his arm. "Did it get you?" "Don't know." Larry turned his arms, showing his forearms. "That was Helen," Barry said. "The office manager?" Larry asked. "No scratches," Barry said, nodding. "Thank God," Larry thought, letting himself sag against the door. Why did she run upstairs? And how did she turn? "You are asking the wrong guy," Barry said, flexing his arms. "Crashing its skull was harder than I imagined." "Jesus, Barry," Larry said. "What?" "I mean it," Barry frowned. Something slammed against the door. Larry jumped away, but the big green emergency door held. "Shit. We need to bar the door." "Barricaded how?" Greg asked. "They have the pull side, right?" Anna asked. Larry nodded, unsure why that mattered. "Then this should work," she said, taking her towel off and wrapping it around the doorknobs. "I guess that can work for now," Barry said, using his keycard to open the glass office door. "But we will have to barricade this one as well." "As fast as possible," Anna said. Larry found himself nodding along as they entered the office proper. Now that the fight was over, the adrenaline drained, leaving his body heavy and aching, and his mind panicking. What was I thinking? He asked himself, brushing past Barry. I don't even like the guy. Larry leaned against a table, eyes closed, as the scene replayed in his mind. Rushing up the stairs, missing the stab, the slam, and then her nails on his forearm. Her jaws closed in on his face. Death coming for him. His whole life flashed before his eyes again, only one image remaining. Mighty, his large black German shepherd, locked in his apartment. Jesus, he thought. I almost died. And for what? Barry? Larry turned to see the man giving orders. He really did seem to enjoy this, or at least find himself in it. I have to get home. Larry straightened himself. I will get home. We should barricade the second door too, Larry said. We will, as soon as this is done, Barry said, directing Anna and Tina left and right. They stood on chairs, holding the large carpet before the glass door. That's good. Table, he whispered. Greg and Stephen placed a table vertically, followed by another one. It was far from perfect, but it stopped the zombies from seeing inside, and it offered some protection. Larry, you good? Barry asked. I will be, he said. Let's do the other side and get something to eat. Barry grinned. Now we're talking. Larry tried for a smile as they circled the office, but it looked terrible. Most of their work colleagues paced around the office, barely interacting with those at their desks, staring at nothing, or on their phones. And Larry understood both urges. He simultaneously wanted to hide under the table until it all passed and rush home to save his dog. That's the difference, he realized. The men and women pacing around the office were parents. Could I use that? He thought, grabbing one of the tables. Help us out here, Barry said. Tim grabbed the carpet, and talkative Janet joined him. However, the woman had been suspiciously silent since the whole ordeal began. Table, Barry whispered. Larry and Greg lowered one. Marty and Stephen placed another. Good. I think that should do for now. Yes, it will, Larry said, grabbing Janet's shoulder. How are you holding up? She looked at his arm, then up at his face, and the woman broke down. Larry stood there awkwardly for a moment until Barry pushed him into the woman. She threw her arms around him, and he hugged her back as she cried her eyes out into his shirt. He turned to Barry, who gave him a thumbs up. What the hell is wrong with that man? Larry asked himself. Franz is not, she sobbed. Not picking up. Larry patted her head, unsure who Franz was, but he didn't ask. Barry, on the other hand, had no such qualms. Franz is your husband, right? My son, she sobbed even more. Larry made a face at the man, and he shrugged, not giving a damn. Or did he? Why would he ask if he didn't care? What a strange man, Larry thought, patting her head. Everything will be okay. We make it out of here and... He trailed off, unsure what to say. And make sure he is safe. We will? Janet asked. Larry nodded. But we will have to prepare for that. Mind grabbing someone else and checking the fridge? Seeing what food we have so we can make dinner and plan on a full stomach. She stared at him, then nodded, tears streaming down her face. Any wishes? Oh, whatever we have, Larry said, turning to Barry. Do you have any tuna left? The man shook his head, grabbing the cigarette pack from his pocket, then seemed to realize that his hands were bloody. I ate it all, but you still have your hot pockets left. True, Larry thought. However, it must have gotten cold by now. We should wash up, Barry snorted, shaking his head as if Larry said something funny. Larry stared at the man as they entered the bathroom. He smiled knowingly, as if they had just exchanged some inside joke. The only problem? Larry was on the outside of whatever inside joke Barry had just heard, and he didn't feel like asking. "How many boxes do you have?" Barry asked, scrubbing his hands clean. "Of Hot Pockets?" The man nodded. 2.5, or a little less than half. "Why?" "Because it's a quick, tasty meal. And I know for a fact, it is the only proper food we have here." It was Larry's turn to snort as he scrubbed his hands clean. "What?" Barry asked, drying his hands and grabbing his cigarettes. "I never considered Hot Pockets good food, let alone proper." Barry snorted, putting a cigarette into his mouth. "Want one?" "I quit." "So?" Barry asked, lighting it up. "The smoke detectors might go off," Larry pointed out, the smoke wafting into his face. "From 1 or 2 cigarettes?" Barry shook his head. "Get a grip and take a swig, Larry." "Fuck it, cancer will take time. And a zombie is far more likely to kill you," Barry said, passing him one. Larry took the cigarette. A sweet, burning sensation filled his mouth and throat as smoke rushed into his lungs. He felt dizzy for a moment, lighter than he had been in weeks. Then it passed, a light buzz settling in. "Jesus," he said, holding back a cough. "This is terrible." "Why are you grinning then?" Barry asked. Larry let the smoke escape from his nose as he exited the bathroom. Anna waited for them there, hands nervously playing with a bundle of keys. "Since when do you smoke?" "Now and again," Larry said. "What's that?" "Keys to the storage, archive, and service room." "Amazing. Lead the way," Larry said. "Dinner is almost ready. Don't you wish to eat first?" Anna asked. "Not a bad idea," Barry said, entering the kitchen. Larry let Anna go first, puffing on his cigarette like he hadn't in ages because he hadn't. 9 years, to be precise, since his father was diagnosed with cancer. Janet and Tina beckoned them to sit. Hot Pockets, ham and cheese sandwiches, and 3 cut-up apples arrayed at the table as if it were a buffet. Thank you for cooking," Larry said. "This couldn't be called cooking," Tim muttered. "It looks really good," Anna said, smiling. Silence fell over them as they began their lunchtime ritual, eating in silence. This time, people didn't glance at Anna and Tina but at Larry and Barry. Larry cleared his throat. "Guys, I will be leaving as soon as the sun sets." "Where to?" Tina asked. "Home." "But Larry, you promised," Janet said. "And we will look for Franz. But I need to get home first." "When are we going?" Barry asked. "I can't ask you to come along." "You don't have to," Barry said, slapping his shoulder. "Barry, no. It's almost 80 blocks on foot. There is no need for you to endanger yourself for me." "Oh, don't be stupid," Barry snapped. "You are my best fucking friend. I'd go to bat for you at the devil." Best friends. The men barely ever spoke, and when they did, Barry did most of the speaking. Larry felt a pang of sorrow and disgust in his gut. Sorrow for Barry and his life if Larry was his best friend, and disgust with himself for never making the extra effort. "Barry, can I speak to you privately?" he asked, opening the kitchen door. The man nodded, taking angry steps outside. "Look, Larry, Barry, man, I don't like you. I never really did." "Dude," Larry cut him off, unsure why the words stumbled out of him. He was usually better at this. "Dude, you reek of cigarettes and fish, and you talk about the most random shit. We were never friends. I was just never rude enough to tell you to buzz off, like the rest did." Barry watched him, his eyes growing hard, as he pulled out 2 cigarettes from the pack. "You don't like me?" Larry shook his head. Barry put one into his mouth, the other pointing at Larry. "We were never friends?" "No, dude, never," Larry said, shocked that he even had to explain it. He lit the cigarette up, pushing the other one into Larry's hand. "Take it." "I don't—" "Take it!" Barry snapped. Larry nodded, taking the cigarette. Barry stared at him, eyes as hard as concrete, flames dancing between them. "You know I hate liars." Larry puffed on the cigarette, staring at the floor. "Look, man, I didn't want to— You stupid fuck thought I would believe you?" Barry asked, barely keeping his voice down. "What? You would just body slam a zombie for anyone?" "No, not just anyone. No, for a person you dislike." "Get the fuck out of here, Larry." "It would seem so, yes," Larry said. "Fuck you. You ain't getting rid of me that easy. I appreciate you trying to protect me. I really do. But where you go, I go. And you know it applies both ways. Barry, I'm serious. You should either stay here or try to reach your own home. I'm serious too. We will get mighty, then circle back to my apartment. And then, well, we'll see." Larry stared at the insane man. "He knows Mighty's name? How? Why? What? Why would you do that? You and I, we go together like iced tea and warm weather." Barry sang. "Larry and Barry, just a letter apart, but always together. How did I end up here? Arguing with the guy I avoided during lunch, planning on saving Mighty with the man I wouldn't lend a pen to. Fuck," Larry whispered, the scene at the stairs playing in his mind's eye again. That was different, a spur-of-the-moment thing. This was insane. "Nice try, man." Barry threw a friendly arm over his shoulder. The shorter man barely reached over, but he got on his tiptoes, his breath hot on Larry's cheek, almost kissing him as he whispered, "Ride or die, man. Larry and Barry, Mr. Ride and Mr. Died." Larry stared ahead, puff, exhale, puff, exhale. Mr. Ride and Mr. Died. Fuck me, Larry thought. How twisted could this day get? Larry and Barry ate with the rest of the office, and they had a decent conversation at the table for the first time in forever. Partly pushed by the adrenaline and fear, partly unnerved by the sudden silence after the screams stopped. But everyone had something to say. Some wanted to stay, some wanted to leave. And nobody seemed to agree on where to go. Well, the others couldn't. Larry had already decided to go home, and Barry decided he would follow. Both men stared at the printed maps, looking for the least populated way to cross the 76 blocks. Larry checked his phone. The direct route to his apartment in Marble Hill would take them about 3 hours on foot. Way too long. And they would travel fully through residential areas, not to mention the fact that they could get separated or lost. "We need a fallback point and a resting spot," Larry said. "We need 6, Barry muttered, stuffing his face with a hot pocket. Larry nodded. That would be practical. But well, they needed to pick a route first. 5th Avenue along the park? We can go through the park. Fewer people means fewer zombies and more places to hide. And less light, Larry muttered, thinking. That's both a good and a bad thing. True, we can keep close to the 5th and follow it? Larry nodded, looking at the maps. I don't think we should go past Bronx College. I went to school there. Barry smiled bitterly. A bunch of liberal pricks. Okay, that's a no? Yeah, we should probably stick to FDB, then move to St. Nicholas Avenue. That's not a lot better, Larry muttered. No, but we can use the church as a safe spot. The man pointed at the masses of greenery at the St. Nicholas Playground and JR Park. The same logic applies. Plus, there is a bathroom right there. We could use it in a pinch. But we have to go the other way, Stephen said. So you make your own plans, Barry said, and the building's elevator began moving. The men looked at each other. Is that the elevator? Tina asked. Seems to be, Barry said. returning to the map. His finger never left the JR Park. Larry nodded. He couldn't argue with the man's logic. Okay, we'll go after sundown. Who is coming along? I am, Anna said. Where do you live? Barry asked. Nowhere now. I'm sticking with you, she said, looking Larry in the eyes. Is that okay? Fine by me. Anyone else? Larry asked, and the elevator pinged. Is that on our floor? We will leave the building with you, but go elsewhere then, Stephen said. Noah and Leah nodded. I live half a block away from Noah, so I'm with them, Tim said. I'm coming too, Greg said. I will too, Marty said. Glad to have you. Do you want to go somewhere specific? Will we stop by the Washington Heights Library? Janet asked before the others could answer. Do you live there? Larry asked. Yes, Franz should be home. How close to it do you actually live? Barry asked. Just over Amsterdam Avenue, Janet said. That's not en route, Larry realized, but said nothing, thinking about how to handle it. Barry, though, did more talking than he did thinking. That's quite out of the way. Could we get Franz to come to us? He is still not picking up. Okay, give us the address. Your apartment will be another fallback point, Larry said, adjusting the destination on his phone. It's an hour away, so approximately halfway there. The bubbles could serve as another safe spot, Barry said. It's about 10 minutes away, and probably empty. Smart, Larry said. Let's learn the maps by heart, print out a few more versions, eat, and rest. As soon as the sun sets, we are heading. Something tapped the office door. Larry turned to Barry. Did you hear that? Barry nodded, taking a knife. Another hit. Not a slam, just a light tap. Is that the door? Tim asked. Seems to be, Larry said, grabbing his knife and heading out. Barry and a few others followed. Another tap. That's the door, Janet said, panic entering her voice. Quiet, Barry whispered, followed by another tap. Larry crept forward, listening. Were those moans? And scratches, he thought, inching forward. Another tap and a moan? He reached the door, peering past the carpet. Two bloody figures shambled past. His heart stopped before kicking into overdrive. He let the carpet fall, hearing nothing but his own heart in his ears. How? What? Barry asked. At least two, Larry whispered, his mind racing. How did they break the emergency door? Anna and Tina went pale, and Janet began pacing and muttering to herself. Greg gritted his teeth, gripping the knife tighter. Larry stared at them all, barely noticing them. One train of thought bounced around his head. Will the glass door hold? Could they wait for the sundown? If not, could he get to Mighty without the cover of the night? Barry pushed past him, peering outside, his face splitting into a manic grin. Let's loot the storage room. You've just listened to Cubicles and Corpses, the first Larry and Barry story, and the first long-form series in the Collapse. I post new stories twice a week, with the Collapse and the Kill List saga running side by side. If you enjoyed this, hit like, subscribe, and dive into the Kill List saga for a dark revenge fantasy full of blood oaths, brutal world, and unforgettable characters. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.